My twin sister sabotaged my audition to shine alone, but the CEO director asked for the other twin. My name is Elena Morrison. I'm a twin. Or more accurately, I'm the other twin. Harper and I were born on the same day, at the same hour, from the same womb. But from the very first minute, she was the princess and I was the backup. We shared the same face, the same DNA, but never the same space in our family's heart. What I'm about to tell you is how I went from being a shadow to having my own light, and how my family went into shock when they finally realized it. But before we continue, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from? If you've ever been compared, if you've ever been the less favorite, if you've ever felt like you would never be enough, hit that like button right now and subscribe. Because this story, you need to hear until the very end. It all started when we were 4 years old, Pasadena, California, 1997. Our house had hardwood floors that creaked under small feet, walls covered with framed dance posters, and a living room that smelled perpetually of rosin and sweat. Our mother, Claire Morrison, had been a dancer. Not a famous one, not even a successful one. She had talent, people said, but life got in the way. Marriage, pregnancy, twins. She never said it out loud, but we could feel it in every glance, every corrected posture, every time she watched us move. We were her second chance. Harper and I were supposed to be what she couldn't become. The difference was that Harper understood this instinctively. I didn't. Harper learned early that our mother's love came with conditions. Shine brighter, speak louder, take up more space. So she did. At 4, she was already performing for anyone who would watch. At 6, she could command a room just by entering it. At 8, she had learned that being bold was rewarded, and being quiet was forgotten. I was the opposite. I observed. I felt things deeply. I needed time to process emotions before I could express them. And in a house where immediacy was valued, where being first meant being seen, I became invisible. Our father, Daniel Morrison, worked as a sound technician for small productions around Los Angeles. He was present physically but absent emotionally. He loved us, I think, but in that distant way some fathers do. He believed the world belonged to those who were brave enough to take it. Harper was brave. I was careful. In his eyes, that made all the difference. I remember one afternoon when we were 10. We'd both auditioned for a local theater production of Annie. Harper got the lead. I got ensemble. At dinner that night, our mother raised her glass to Harper. Our father beamed with pride, and I sat there, fork in hand, wondering what I had done wrong. I'd prepared just as hard. I'd sung just as well, but Harper had smiled bigger. She'd made them feel something. That's when I learned the first painful lesson of being a twin. It's not enough to be good. You have to be better. And when you share a face with someone who's already claimed the spotlight, better feels impossible. By the time we were teenagers, the dynamic was set in stone. Harper was the star. I was the support system. She had the solos. I had the harmonies. She had the standing ovations. I had the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd done my part. It wasn't malicious at first. It was just the way things were. But around 15, something shifted. We both started talking seriously about pursuing performing arts. Not for fame, but because it was the only language we truly understood. The difference was clear. Harper wanted to be seen. I wanted to be felt. Harper had charisma. She could walk into a room and change its temperature. She knew how to play to a crowd, how to make people lean in. She was magnetic. I had depth. I could disappear into a character so completely that people forgot they were watching a performance. I could convey entire lifetimes in a single look. I didn't need to shout to be heard. I just needed people to pay attention. And that became the problem, because people don't always pay attention to the quiet ones, especially when there's someone louder standing right next to them. I'll never forget the spring of 2011. We were 18, seniors in high school, both applying to theater programs. Harper got into 3 schools. I got into 4. But at dinner, only Harper's acceptances were celebrated. Mine were mentioned in passing, almost like footnotes. Congratulations, Elena. Very nice. Now, Harper, tell us about USC. I smiled. I congratulated her. I pretended it didn't hurt. But it did. It always did. Over the years, I watched opportunities slip through my fingers in ways that felt just a little too convenient. An audition time that Harper forgot to tell me about. A callback that somehow got rescheduled without my knowledge. A director's contact information that got lost before I could follow up. Nothing ever big enough to confront. Nothing ever obvious enough to prove. Just enough to make me wonder. Just enough to make me doubt myself. By the time we were in our mid-20s, we'd both carved out small careers in Los Angeles. Harper did commercial work, print ads, small roles in web series. I taught acting workshops, did voice work, performed in intimate theater productions that nobody famous ever saw. We were surviving, not thriving, but we were doing what we loved. Our relationship had become distant, polite, carefully choreographed to avoid conflict. We saw each other at family dinners, exchanged surface-level updates, and maintained the illusion of sisterhood. But the truth was, we'd been strangers for years, strangers who happened to share the same face. And then, in early 2022, everything changed. There was an audition, a real one, not a commercial, not a student film, a dramatic limited series produced by a small but respected independent studio. The kind of project that could actually lead somewhere. The casting call was open, which meant Harper and I both knew about it. For once, we were on equal footing. The series was called The Mirror's Edge. It was a psychological drama about identity, trauma, and the masks people wear to survive. The lead role, Iris, was a woman who'd spent her life trying to be someone she wasn't, only to discover that her authentic self was more powerful than any persona she could create. When I read the breakdown, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just another role. This was everything I'd been trying to say for years, distilled into a character. This was my language. I knew Harper would audition. Of course she would. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of the competition. I was ready. The audition was scheduled for March 15th, 2022. I had 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks to make sure that when I walked into that room, I wasn't competing with Harper. I was competing with myself. With every doubt, every insecurity, every time I'd made myself smaller to make someone else comfortable. I worked harder than I'd ever worked. I broke down the script scene by scene, line by line. I studied the character's motivations, her fears, the specific rhythm of her speech. I recorded myself, watched the playback, adjusted. I did it again and again. This wasn't about perfection, it was about truth. Harper and I didn't talk about the audition directly. We both knew we were going for the same role. There was no point in pretending otherwise, but there was an unspoken agreement to keep our distance during prep, or so I thought. 5 days before the audition, Harper called me. It was late evening, around 9. I almost didn't answer. We rarely spoke on the phone anymore. But something made me pick up. Her voice was different, softer, almost vulnerable. "Elena," she said, "can we talk?" I hesitated. About what? About everything. About us. I know things have been weird between us for a long time. I know I haven't always been the sister you needed. But I've been thinking a lot lately, and I want things to be different. I want us to be different. I didn't trust it. Not fully. But I wanted to. God, I wanted to. "Okay," I said. "What do you want to talk about?" There was a pause. Then she said, "I know we're both auditioning for the same role, and I know that's complicated. But I was thinking, what if we helped each other prepare? What if instead of competing, we collaborated? We're twins. Elena, we should be lifting each other up, not tearing each other down." It sounded reasonable. It sounded kind. It sounded exactly like something a good sister would suggest. I should have known better. We met the next afternoon at a small rehearsal studio in Silver Lake. The space was narrow, with mirrors on one wall and ballet bars on the other. Afternoon light filtered through high windows, casting long shadows across the scuffed wooden floor. Harper arrived first, already warmed up, script in hand. She smiled when I walked in. That same bright, effortless smile that had always made rooms turn in her direction. "Hey," she said. "Thanks for doing this." We started with the main audition scene, the one where Iris confronts her own reflection. realizing that the woman she's been pretending to be isn't sustainable anymore. It's raw. It's quiet. It requires complete honesty. I went first. Harper watched from the corner, nodding occasionally, taking notes. When I finished, she was silent for a moment. Then she said, "That was really good, Elena. Really good. But I think you're holding back a little in the third beat. Like you're scared to fully let go. What if you tried it angrier? More explosive?" I frowned. The character isn't angry in that moment. She's devastated. Harper shrugged. "I know, but devastation can look like a lot of things. Maybe try it and see how it feels." I tried it her way. It felt wrong, forced, like I was performing grief instead of embodying it. But Harper kept encouraging me. Keep going. Bigger, more. Let people feel it from the back row. After an hour, I was exhausted. Not from the work, but from trying to fit my performance into someone else's vision. Harper was relentless. Every choice I made, she questioned. Every moment of stillness, she filled with noise. By the time we finished, I felt further from the character than I had when I started. Harper, on the other hand, seemed energized. She ran through her version of the scene, and it was exactly what I expected. Big, bold, commanding. It wasn't wrong, necessarily. It just wasn't the character. At least not the way I understood her. We packed up around sunset. Harper hugged me before we left, something she hadn't done in years. "Thanks for today," she said. "I really think this helped. Good luck, Elena. I mean it." I wanted to believe her. The next few days passed in a blur. I tried to get back to my original interpretation, but Harper's notes kept echoing in my head. What if I was wrong? What if I was holding back? What if quiet wasn't enough? The night before the audition, I barely slept. I went over my lines until they lost all meaning. I second-guessed every choice. By morning, I was running on nerves and caffeine. I'd written the audition details in my phone. March 15th, 10 a.m., Crescent Studios, West Hollywood. I'd checked it a dozen times. I'd set 3 alarms. I couldn't afford to mess this up. I left my apartment in Koreatown at 8:30. Traffic was light. I arrived at the studio at 9:15, giving myself plenty of time to center, to breathe, to remember why I was there. But when I walked into the lobby, something felt off. The receptionist looked up at me, confused. "Can I help you?" "I'm here for the audition," I said. "For The Mirror's Edge. I'm Elena Morrison." She frowned, scrolling through something on her computer. "I don't see your name on the list for this morning." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean? I have an appointment at 10. She shook her head. The 10 o'clock slot was yesterday. Today's audition started at 7 a.m. Most people have already gone through. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, opened my calendar. And there it was. March 14th, 10 a.m. Not March 15th, March 14th. I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of it. I'd written March 15th. I knew I had. I'd checked it multiple times. But now it said March 14th. And then, slowly, the pieces started clicking into place. Harper had been the last person to use my phone during our rehearsal. I'd left it on the windowsill while we worked. She'd offered to set a timer for one of our run-throughs. She must have changed it then. One small edit, one number, subtle enough that I wouldn't notice until it was too late. I felt the air leave my lungs. The receptionist was still talking, something about how the casting director was very strict about scheduling, how I should reach out to reschedule, how sorry she was. But I wasn't listening anymore. Harper had already auditioned. She'd gone in at her real time, the time she'd never changed in her own calendar. She'd walked into that room fresh, prepared, confident, and I'd been erased before I even had a chance. I sat down in the lobby, legs too weak to hold me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at my phone, at that one changed number, and felt the weight of a lifetime of small sabotages finally crush me. This time I had proof. This time I couldn't pretend it was an accident. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, maybe longer. The lobby was quiet except for the soft hum of air conditioning and the occasional click of the receptionist's keyboard. People walked past me, scripts in hand, faces tight with pre-audition nerves. None of them looked at me twice. I'd become very good at being invisible. I should have left. Should have walked out, gotten in my car, driven home, and let myself fall apart in private like I'd done 100 times before. But something kept me frozen in that chair. Anger, maybe. Or just exhaustion. The kind that makes you too tired to even move. I pulled out my phone again, stared at the calendar. March 14th. Harper's handwriting was all over this, even if it was just one number. One small, deliberate change that she knew would destroy me. The worst part was that it wasn't the first time. It was just the first time I could prove it. I was about to stand, about to finally leave, when I heard footsteps approaching. Fast, purposeful. "Excuse me. Are you Elena Morrison?" I looked up. A young woman in her mid-20s stood in front of me, clipboard in hand, slightly out of breath. She had dark hair pulled into a messy bun and the kind of exhausted eyes that come from working in production. "Yes," I said slowly. She exhaled, relieved. "Thank God you're still here. I'm Casey, the assistant director. Mr. Cole wants to see you." I blinked. "What?" She glanced at her clipboard, then back at me. "Your sister auditioned about an hour ago. Harper Morrison, right?" Mr. Cole reviewed her tape and, she paused. Choosing her words carefully, he noticed some inconsistencies. He asked if the other twin was still here. My heart was pounding. Inconsistencies? Casey smiled, but it was tight. Professional. "Look, I don't know the details. I just know he wants to see you. Can you audition now?" I should have said no. I wasn't prepared. I'd barely slept. I was running on adrenaline and heartbreak, but something in Casey's expression told me this wasn't a courtesy. This was a real chance. "Yes," I said. "I can audition now." She led me down a hallway lined with framed movie posters, past rooms filled with equipment and crew members moving with quiet efficiency. My hands were shaking. I tried to center myself to remember my preparation, but my mind was a mess of Harper's voice and my own doubts. We stopped in front of a closed door. Casey knocked twice, then opened it. The room was smaller than I expected. White walls, minimal furniture, a camera on a tripod in the corner, and sitting behind a simple wooden table, watching me with dark, assessing eyes, was Nathan Cole. I'd seen his photo online during my research. Mid-40s, graying at the temples, known for being demanding but fair. He'd built his career on finding raw, authentic talent in places other directors overlooked. He didn't care about your resume. He cared about your truth. "Elena Morrison," he said. Not a question. A confirmation. "Yes, I managed." He gestured to a chair across from him. "Sit." I sat. My bag slipped off my shoulder and landed on the floor with a soft thud. I left it there. Nathan leaned back, studying me. "Your sister came in an hour ago. She was impressive, confident, well-rehearsed. But something felt off, like she was performing the character instead of inhabiting her. Do you understand the difference?" I nodded. "Yes." He pushed a script across the table. Same scene. The confrontation with the mirror. "But I don't want what your sister gave me. I don't want performance. I want truth. I want to see what happens when you stop trying to impress me and just let yourself be." I picked up the script with trembling hands. I'd lived with these words for weeks. I knew every beat, every pause, every moment of silence that mattered more than the dialogue. "Whenever you're ready," Nathan said. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and let everything go. The sabotage, the hurt, the years of being second. I let it all pour into the character, because Iris wasn't pretending anymore, and neither was I. I opened my eyes and began. The words came out quiet, not weak. Quiet. There's a difference. Iris was a woman who'd spent her entire life shouting to be heard, only to realize that the noise was drowning out her own voice. So in this scene, she stops. She gets still. And in that stillness, she finally hears herself. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't try to make it bigger or more dramatic. I just let the weight of a lifetime of pretending settle into every line, every pause, every moment of silence. When I finished, the room was completely still. Nathan didn't move, didn't speak. He just watched me with those dark, unreadable eyes. Then finally, he leaned forward. That, he said quietly, was the character. I felt something crack open inside me. Not relief, not quite, just the overwhelming weight of being seen for the first time in my life. Nathan made a few notes on his pad, then looked back at me. Tell me about your training. I gave him the short version. Workshops, community theater, voice work, teaching, nothing glamorous, nothing that would look good on a resume. And your relationship with your sister? I hesitated. That's complicated. He nodded. I imagine it is. Identical faces, different paths. That's got to be difficult. I met his eyes. It's been difficult my whole life. He studied me for another long moment, then closed his notebook. Thank you for coming in, Elena. We'll be in touch. Casey walked me back to the lobby. I was numb, not disappointed, not hopeful, just numb. I sat in my car for 20 minutes before I could bring myself to drive home. My phone buzzed with a text from Harper. How'd it go? Did you make it? I stared at the message. She knew. Of course she knew. She'd been waiting to see if I'd figure it out. I didn't respond. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the audition in my head. Nathan's words echoed. That was the character. But I'd learned a long time ago not to hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope led to disappointment. 2 days passed, then 3. I went through the motions, taught my workshop, responded to emails, avoided Harper's calls. On the 4th day, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Elena Morrison? Yes. This is Nathan Cole. My heart stopped. I'm calling to offer you the role of Iris in The Mirror's Edge. It's not the lead. It's the lead's best friend. Smaller, but emotionally central to the story. The kind of character that holds scenes together when everyone else is falling apart. I think you're perfect for it. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. I need someone who understands what it's like to be overlooked, Nathan continued. Someone who doesn't need to shout to be heard. Someone who can carry weight without breaking. That's you. I found my voice. Why not Harper? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because I'm not interested in the one who shines brightest. I'm interested in the one who holds the light steady when the shine fades. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I let myself cry. Not from pain, from something else, something I didn't have a name for yet. When do we start? I asked. 3 months, he said. Rehearsals begin in June. Production in August. I'll have my team send you the details. After we hung up, I sat on my couch, phone in my lap, and stared at nothing. I'd been chosen, not because I was louder, not because I was bolder, but because I was real. And Harper was about to find out. I didn't tell Harper right away, not because I wanted to hide it, but because I needed time to process what had happened. For 29 years, I'd been the backup, the spare, the one who got the leftovers after Harper took what she wanted. And now, for the first time, someone had chosen me first. It felt fragile, like if I spoke it out loud too soon, it might disappear. But secrets don't stay hidden in families like ours, especially not when there's only 2 of you and you share the same face. Harper found out 3 days later. Not from me, from a mutual contact who'd seen the casting announcement on a private industry board. She called me immediately. I was in my kitchen making coffee when my phone lit up with her name. I let it ring twice before answering. Elena, her voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. Okay, I said. Is it true? Did you get cast in The Mirror's Edge? Yes, silence. Long enough that I thought she'd hung up. Then quietly, almost too quiet to hear, she said, How? I closed my eyes. What do you mean, how? You missed your audition. I saw the sign-in sheet. You weren't on it. My grip tightened on the phone. I came late. They called me back. Another pause. Called you back? Why would they call you back if you missed your slot? And there it was. The question she couldn't ask directly. The question that would require her to admit what she'd done. I don't know, Harper. Maybe because the director wanted to see me. Maybe because he wasn't satisfied with what he got earlier. Her breathing changed. Faster. Sharper. What are you saying? I'm not saying anything, I replied. I'm just telling you what happened. The conversation ended shortly after that. Stiff, formal. The kind of exchange you have with a stranger, not a sister. She congratulated me, but the words were hollow. We both knew it. Over the next few weeks, I felt the shift in our family dynamic. My mother called, her voice cautious, asking about the project. She tried to sound happy for me, but I could hear the confusion underneath. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Harper was the one who booked roles. Harper was the one who got callbacks. I was supposed to be the steady one, the reliable one, the one who supported from the sidelines. My father sent a text. Proud of you, kiddo. Short, simple. But coming from him, it felt like a novel. Harper stopped calling, stopped texting. When we saw each other at a family dinner in May, she was polite, distant. She asked surface-level questions about the production and nodded at my answers, but her eyes were somewhere else. She'd perfected the art of being present without actually being there. I recognized it because I'd done the same thing for years. Rehearsals began in June. The cast was small, just 6 of us, and the vibe was intimate, collaborative. Nathan ran the room with quiet authority, never raising his voice but somehow making everyone feel both safe and challenged. My character, Iris's best friend Morgan, was everything I'd been in real life. The observer, the steady presence. The one who saw everything but said little. The one people overlooked until they needed someone to hold them together. But Morgan had something I was still learning. Boundaries. She knew when to step back. She knew when someone else's chaos wasn't hers to fix. She loved fiercely, but never at the expense of herself. Nathan pulled me aside after the 3rd rehearsal. You're doing good work, he said, but I need you to go deeper. Morgan isn't just observing. She's protecting herself. She's learned that sometimes love means distance. I thought about Harper, about a lifetime of absorbing her chaos, her need for validation, her inability to let me exist separately from her. I can do that, I told Nathan. And I did. Production started in August. Long days on set, 14-hour shoots, the controlled chaos that comes with independent filmmaking. I loved every second of it. Not because it was glamorous, it wasn't, but because for the first time in my life, I was doing work that felt like mine. Not Harper's shadow, not my mother's projection. Mine. Harper tried to visit the set once. She'd called ahead, asked if she could stop by, said she wanted to see me in action. I said no. She was stunned. What do you mean no? I mean, this is my space, Harper, and I need it to stay that way. I'm your sister. I know. But you're also the person who sabotaged my audition, and I'm not ready to pretend that didn't happen. She started to deny it, to claim it was an accident, that she would never, but I cut her off. You changed the date in my calendar, Harper. I know you did. And honestly, I don't even need you to admit it anymore. I just need you to stay away while I do this. The line went quiet. Then she hung up. I expected to feel guilty. I'd spent my whole life absorbing Harper's emotions, managing her reactions, making sure she never felt abandoned or unloved. But this time, I felt nothing but relief. Months passed. The production wrapped in October. Post-production took another 2 months. During that time, I started building a life that didn't revolve around Harper. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with. I took a weekend trip to Big Sur by myself. I started therapy. My therapist, Dr. Reyes, asked me during our 3rd session, "What do you think you've been protecting Harper from all these years?" I thought about it. From feeling like she's not enough. And what have you been protecting yourself from? I looked down at my hands. From admitting that I've never felt like enough either. She nodded. What if you both need to feel that discomfort? What if that's the only way either of you grow? I didn't have an answer, not then. But I was starting to understand that Harper and I had been locked in a dance for 29 years. She took, I gave, she shone, I faded. And as long as I kept playing my part, neither of us could become who we actually were. The series premiered at a small film festival in December. I didn't invite my family. I didn't tell Harper. I went alone, sat in the back of the theater, and watched myself on screen for the first time in a role that actually mattered. When Morgan had her final scene, the one where she tells her best friend that she can't keep saving her, that love doesn't mean losing yourself, the theater was silent, completely silent. And when the credits rolled, people stood. Not for the lead, not for the director, for the whole piece, for the truth we'd managed to capture. Afterwards, at the small reception, Nathan found me. "You did it," he said. "You found her." I smiled. Turns out she was there the whole time. I just had to stop being afraid of her. He nodded. That's usually how it works. The series got picked up for limited distribution. Nothing massive, but solid, real. The kind of work that opens doors without kicking them down. And 3 weeks later, Harper finally reached out. Her text was short. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time before responding. "Yes, but not to go back, only to move forward." She replied immediately. "Okay." We met at a coffee shop in Los Feliz, neutral territory. Harper arrived first, already seated when I walked in. She looked different, tired, like she'd been carrying something heavy and finally put it down. I sat across from her, didn't hug, didn't smile, just sat. "I watched the series," she said quietly. And she looked down at her hands. "You were really good, Elena. Like, really good. Better than I've ever been." I waited. "I've been thinking a lot about why I did what I did," she continued. "With the audition, with everything. And I think," she paused, searching for words. "I think I was terrified." "Of what?" "Of you. Of the fact that you didn't need to be loud to be seen. That you could do quietly what I've been screaming to do my whole life." I leaned back. "Harper, I'm not your competition. I never was." She looked up, eyes wet. "Then why did it always feel like you were?" "Because that's what we were taught," I said. "That there wasn't enough space for both of us. That one of us had to win. But that was never true. We just believed it because no one told us otherwise." She nodded slowly. "I don't know how to fix this. I don't either," I admitted. "But I know I can't go back to how things were, where I made myself small so you could feel big. That's over. What do we do instead?" "We figure it out," I said, slowly, with boundaries, and maybe with a lot less talking and a lot more space. She smiled, sad but real. "I can do that." We didn't hug when we left. We didn't make promises. We just acknowledged that something had ended and something else might begin. Someday, maybe, but not today. Today, I was whole, all by myself. 6 months after the series premiered, I got a call from an agent. A real one. The kind who represents people you've actually heard of. She'd seen The Mirror's Edge at the festival and wanted to meet. Her name was Patricia Ramos, and her office was in Century City, all glass windows and minimalist furniture. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and direct in a way I immediately respected. "You're not what I expected," she said as I sat down. "What did you expect?" "Someone louder, someone more," she gestured vaguely, performed. "But that's not you, is it?" "No." "Good," she said, "because the industry has enough performers. What it needs is people who can hold truth, and you can do that." She offered to represent me that day. I signed 2 weeks later. Work didn't pour in immediately. That's not how it happens for people like me. But it came, steadily. Real projects with real directors who cared about story over spectacle. A recurring role on a cable drama. Voice work for an acclaimed indie game. An off-Broadway production that got extended twice. I wasn't famous, I wasn't trying to be. But I was working. And more importantly, I was building something that felt sustainable. Something that was mine. Harper and I maintained our distance. We texted occasionally, saw each other at family holidays. But the desperation was gone. The need to constantly compare, to measure ourselves against each other, had dissolved. She was finding her own path, and I was walking mine. Sometimes those paths crossed. Most of the time, they didn't. And that was okay. My mother struggled with the shift more than anyone. She'd built her entire identity around Harper's success, around the idea that her daughter would achieve what she couldn't. When I started booking consistent work, when my name started appearing in small industry circles, she didn't know how to process it. One evening in late spring, she called me. Her voice was tentative. "Elena, I need to tell you something." "Okay. I don't think I was a very good mother to you. Not in the ways you needed." I was quiet, waiting. I put everything into Harper because she reminded me of who I used to be. Bold, fearless. "But you," she paused, "you were always more than I knew how to see. And I'm sorry for that. It wasn't a perfect apology. It didn't erase decades of being overlooked. But it was real, and that mattered." "Thank you," I said. We talked for another hour, about her dancing career, about the dreams she'd abandoned, about how she'd accidentally taught both of us that love was conditional, that it had to be earned through achievement. "I don't want that for you anymore," she said quietly. "I want you to be happy. Both of you." "I'm getting there," I told her. And I was. Dr. Reyes asked me once, near the end of our time together, "What do you think you learned from all of this?" I thought about it. That I don't need anyone's permission to exist. That being quiet doesn't mean being weak. That the people who overlook you are telling you more about themselves than they are about you. She smiled. "Anything else?" I leaned back. That revenge isn't about being chosen. It's about not needing to compete in the first place. A year after the series premiered, Nathan called me with another project. A feature film this time. Bigger budget. Wider release. He wanted me for a supporting role, something subtle but critical to the story's emotional core. I read the script in one sitting. When I finished, I called him back immediately. "This is exactly what I want to do," I told him. "I know," he said. "That's why I called you." The film shot in New Mexico over the summer. Long days in the desert heat, intimate scenes with actors I'd admired for years, a director who trusted his cast to find the truth in every moment. On the last day of shooting, as the sun set over the mesas and turned the sky into streaks of orange and pink, I stood at the edge of the set and let myself feel it. All of it. The years of being invisible, the audition that changed everything, the slow, painful work of learning to take up space. I thought about Harper, about how she'd tried to erase me, and how that erasure had forced me to finally define myself. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't need to. Casey, Nathan's assistant from that first audition, found me as we were wrapping. She'd been promoted to associate producer and had worked on this film too. "You look different," she said. "Different how?" She shrugged. "Like you're not apologizing for being here." I smiled. "I'm not." When I got back to Los Angeles, Harper texted me. "Heard about the film. Congratulations." I replied, "Thank you." Then she added, "I'm proud of you, and I think I finally mean it." We met for coffee 2 weeks later. This time it felt different. Less like a negotiation and more like two people trying to figure out how to be in each other's lives without destroying themselves in the process. "I'm working with a therapist," Harper said, "trying to figure out why I always felt like I had to win." "That's good." She looked at me. "I think I sabotaged you because I was scared that if you succeeded, it would prove I didn't deserve to. Like there was only room for one of us." I nodded. "I know. And now? Now I'm learning that your success doesn't take anything from me. That we're not in a race. We never were." We sat in silence for a moment. Then she said, "I don't know if we'll ever be close again, like we were when we were kids. Maybe not," I said, "but maybe we can be something better, something that doesn't require one of us to disappear." She smiled, sad but real. "I'd like that." We didn't fix everything that day. We couldn't, but we started. And that was enough. 2 years after the audition that changed my life, I was sitting in my apartment in Silver Lake, script in hand, preparing for another project. The window was open, letting in the sounds of the city, traffic, voices, life happening all around me. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Next project locked in. Sending you the script tomorrow. I think you're going to love this one. I smiled and set the phone down. I thought about the girl I used to be. The one who made herself small. The one who apologized for existing. The one who believed that being overlooked was her natural state. She was gone now. Not erased. Just transformed into someone who understood that being seen wasn't the goal. Being true was. And the truth was this. Harper had tried to sabotage me. She changed a number in my calendar and thought it would erase me from the equation. But all she'd done was force me to show up as myself, unprepared, unpolished, real. And that was what Nathan had been looking for all along, not the performance. The person. This story, while dramatized, is inspired by the real experiences of countless individuals who have lived in the shadow of a sibling, constantly compared and chronically overlooked. When you share a face with someone but are forced to compete for space, it teaches you something profound about identity and worth. You learn that authenticity isn't about being louder than the noise. It's about being steady when the noise fades. These aren't just stories. They're lessons in self-worth, resilience, and the courage to choose yourself when no one else does. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been constantly compared to a sibling or someone close? How did that shape who you are today? And for those who know what it feels like to be the overlooked one, what was the moment you decided to stop waiting for permission to exist? If this story resonated with you, if you felt the pain, the sabotage, and ultimately the reclaiming of space, write the word chosen in the comments so I know you stayed until the end. And tell me, what city are you watching from? I'd love to know where this message is reaching. If you found value in this story, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that might change how you see yourself. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's still waiting to be picked, someone who needs to know that the validation they're searching for doesn't come from being chosen by others. It comes from choosing themselves. And don't forget to click on the next video in the cards above, because every story here carries a lesson worth learning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, you were never competing for space. You were always supposed to take it.